is going to be looking for aggressively that specific card in Cult Neophyte, in addition to, of course, any tempo options like Foxy Fraud plus Wand Thief. A great start versus Druid.
Yeah, honestly, the price blender is worth looking at as well, but for the same argument that I don't keep Combustion versus Token Druid, I don't like keeping it that early versus Token Druid on the Rogue. If Lamby's full tossing this, I'd have to imagine he is looking specifically for Octobot beyond just Cult Neophyte, because that's the card that can solo you the game. If it discounts all of those things we were talking about, then you can get on board before the Glowfly even happens and make sure that you take all the value trades.
Yeah, I can totally see his reasoning. Honestly, though, I think even if you're not keeping the Wand Thief there, I just really like Foxy in this matchup. I think the potential to go Foxy into Swindle is good. Foxy Vanessa is just insane because you get so much tempo on the board at the start. And again, as I said, you don't just have to play reactively, you can play proactively against the Druid. Get these minions down early and then trade against their Glowfly. But as you said, lambyseries has his sights set on slightly loftier goals, and so instead here he does get himself what is a decent hand. It's a little clunky, the contact, the wicked stab, the secret passage not finding their use yet, but it does lead into some really powerful curves with 4, 5, 6 dealt with Kazakus Golem Jandis.
Starts to get spicy, but while it is a slow hand for Lamby, it's also a relatively slow hand for Posesi, not having hit card draw. And if he wanted to go for Bloom into Glowfly the last turn, he would only get, what, 4 Glowflies and nothing to follow up. So we are looking at potentially turn 5 Glow5 from Posesi.
Yeah.
Alternatively, just this turn into the Adorable Infestation still looks decent, because he can get 5 onto the board, one of them being a 3-3 and then another 1-1. Problem is, he'll be overloaded to play one of his best 4-cost spells next turn.
Yeah, and then are you not playing the Luna as well, which of course means you're down another spell. Like, I think I'd rather just wait another turn, go for Luna Glowfly, and then say you're unlikely to be able to deal with it in one turn.
Indeed. And for Lamby, very interesting to take the Lesser Golem, and I think for this exact situation, it makes a lot of sense. You hardly ever coin Kazakus because you ideally want to take 5 drops in pretty much every matchup, but because Lamby had nothing better to do with his mana and also now has that 1 cost as a way to proc the field contact, that was his reasoning for it. But now this Octobot could change things, because he could even proc it with his own Brain Freeze this turn and super pop off next turn.
I mean, I'm kind of looking at if you play it and step the Kazakus as well, weirdly enough, because if you play it out, you can actually reduce another 1-cost Golem if you pick that again, which is just insane with the field contact next turn, especially if you can get another deal 3 damage.
Yeah, that is super smart. And he absolutely doesn't have to Brain Freeze the Octobot as well, because Posesi is very likely to build a board that it can proc itself into. And Posesi has no way of taking this down in one hit outside of very niche discovers from nature studies. So Lamby, I don't know necessarily what Lesser Golems he got, but pretty much any of them for 0 mana are insane here.
Yeah, a little surprising to not see Lunar Eclipse first. I mean, I guess you still end up with the same amount of Glowflies if they're just going to trade back anyway. But either way, now the turn comes in for Lambyseries, and what a turn this is going to be. I don't think he hit deal 3 damage on either of his 2 golems, so his reactivity is a little bit lower, but it's still able to clear off at least 2 more of these golems, and possibly more afterwards.
And it looks like he took +1/+1, which is, you know, pretty good. That's even better in a lot of aspects. Oh my goodness, he can go Foxy into Prize Plunder into the Lesser Golem. If you do it this way, then potentially can fit in a Brain Freeze if you get it as well, but the board space... Oh yeah, the board space is why he didn't start Foxy.
Yeah, and you could just go Wicked Stab as well, right? Which is just good, I think, to clear off another minion here. It's all you care about is not getting hit with, like, Solar Arbor into losing the game.
Yeah, super powerful. Lamby is just winning!
This is so sick. Like, even though we could have questions about whether this was the correct way for Lambyseries, I do think it is. At the very least, it's just super cool. It's so clever as a way to play it.
Oh, but this drop from Posesi, I mean, he had it already, right? But we can go Adorable into Lunar, into Solar Arbor up, and that is, you know, a decent amount of value trades.
It's insane, yeah. It's super, super powerful. But again, lambyseries is left, you know, with plenty of fight back of his own. He can go for double Neophyte on this turn to basically delete the following turn from Posesi, or at least make it a lot worse. But that might not even be the most powerful thing. We might be looking at Swindle to draw some more cards. Maybe it's Secret Passage, maybe it's Jandice. So many different ways to go about it.
Yeah, the problem is for Posesi, so many of his minions just die straight up to the right trades on board.
Yeah.
As much as Posesi would love to send everything face, the 3 attack minions on lambyseries side of the board are just so annoying, right? Because they trade up into 5-3 and 4-3, and the 4-2 goes into 6-4. So is this going to be just face in the end because Lamby has good trades no matter what Posesi does? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I like it. You just want to make it so even if just 2 minions get stuck on board, you just have lethal next turn.
And this is super complicated for Lamby, but it's at the same time, as long as he gets the Cult Neophytes down and trades the majority of the board, he should be fine.
Okay, Neophyte Passage. At the very least, he's making this turn quickly, which you love to see, of course, just to make sure he has plenty of time. Brain Freeze is a very nice pickup, just to deal with an extra minion. Shadow Step is huge, and another Plunderer! Goodbye, board.
Yeah, this board is big time gone. Other Prize Plunderer into 5-3. Sure. First Prize Plunderer into 6-4. And then he steps it, then puts it on the 7-5. Goodbye, deleted. Board.
Absolutely deleted. Such a sick game from lambyseries again. And this is the benefit of going for the line he went for. Well, I was thinking like decent start. Maybe my line would have got there. It's hard to say. But he had his went for a very aspirational mulligan and hit the absolute dream off of it. Very, very nicely done.
Posesi, though, ways to come back include, as always, Fungal Fortunes, but he cannot play Glowfly immediately, even if he draws it off the Fungal. And Lamby just has Jandice to follow up.
He can't even play Harbor up on this turn if he wanted to do that, just to try and stick something on the board. Like, this is a straight-up pass, effectively.
It might be Mercil into Adorable and Hero Power, just have some measure of board, but it's just not getting there.
Yeah, honestly, I think I'd rather keep those in hand just because it's a way to make 3 minions, and then you can go for Soul of the Forest or Pride's Fury.
Right. All in the same turn. Posesi's 1 resource is his health total at the moment, so gotta have to be a bit more greedy there.
Windmill Slam Jandice. Even if you get a bad one like that, you just don't care. It's good enough.
Yep. Second Neophyte is the backbreaker for Posesi. There's little he can do from this position.
Yeah, there's just no mana. That was a decent top deck in all honesty. But the Neophyte just absolutely shuts it down.
And that means that we are going to head to Game 2 in a very timely fashion. Lamby, cool as a cucumber as always, saw the exact lines with the Kazakas. And I don't think he got the perfect 1-cost golems to begin with. Like that first one being lifesteal is not great in the matchup. If it doesn't shoot or rush, then it often feels not good enough. But even hitting a single +1/+1 across the board, recognizing that that's even better than the DO3 in a lot of situations, gave Lamby the ability to trade up into the big refill from Posesi, and Lamby just followed up cleanly from there. Nicely done.
Very, very nicely done. Yeah, again, Posesi, to his credit, is scrambling very, very hard, trying to find any way that this kind of hand can get back in. If he could literally stack the deck in the perfect order, could he get back into this game? I mean, maybe, again, if lambyseries had a garbage hand, but lambyseries just has yet more strong follow-up. Posesi here is saying, okay, playing something onto the board here is effectively necessary because he's just going to die in 2 turns if he doesn't. So I respect this line from him, and who knows, maybe one thing sticks and he can get a Solar Arbor up next turn.
Posesi is potentially dead if Lamby just hits second Wicked Stab off of this Swindle. Even if he's not dead though, Lamby can very easily trade this. But there's a stab, that's lethal, and we are going Game 2.
That's going to do it. Very, very nicely done indeed. And so in terms of the counter ability of Rogue. This is, I think, the one deck where things get a little scary for Posesi. I think he has, again, arguably two favorable matchups because he has the Priest, which is, again, not bad against Rogue. It's close, but slightly Priest favored in my opinion. Demon Hunter, again, close, but slightly Demon Hunter favored. But with lambyseries, obviously thinking very big brain in terms of these Rogue plays, playing very well as well. Rogue is a scary archetype to go up against, specifically the Miracle Rogue, just because it can do seemingly anything if your opponent gets the right draws and plays it right.
And so the question is, for Posesi's perspective, at least on average, is the Rogue going to be better against Priest or against Demon Hunter? And I feel that against a player of lambyseries caliber who absolutely knows when to time Cult Neophyte, that's probably more backbreaking against Demon Hunter than it is versus Priest, because Priest still has like decent just minion plays they can go for from turn to turn that can pressure the Rogue or out-heal the Rogue depending on what is necessary. So I'd be inclined to queue the Priest here, especially since Lamby doesn't really have a good counter against it left in his lineup. He has Rush Warrior, which Priest is also favored against, and then Token Druid, which I guess you can say is not super heavily Priest favored, but I think still Priest favored.
Yeah, and I think specifically this build that Posesi has opted for, again, as have all the Japanese players, does put him in a pretty good spot against the Rogue. He has a little bit of extra healing slotted in there in the form of Desperate Prayer, and healing is very, very crucial against Rogue, because even though the mid-game, it's obviously very important to keep the board clear, Samuro, 4-mana Hysteria now can still be very powerful, in addition to obviously Zyrella and Condemn as the premier board clear options. Healing in the late game is so crucial, because if the Rogue is playing correctly, they're very often going to go for, stepping the Tenwu back to their hand to get a 16 damage burst combo with Alexstrasza. Maybe it's even more burst they're going for with like 24 if the Octobots are willing to reduce everything correctly. So all this healing is very, very crucial. And I think even without the Mage Scribes towards the top of the deck, there should still be on average enough value to outvalue Rogue with this build from Posesi. So I think it's just well situated overall.
Yeah, absolutely. Just the package of One Maker, Scorpid, Sethic, and Raise Dead does a lot in terms of shoring up any cards that you feel are lacking in the main deck. I will say that the nerf to Hysteria has at least partially affected the way this lineup was built, because they are only running one copy now instead of what used to be the automatic 2 copies. This Priest is not running the Giants plus Devouring Plague combo that we're seeing become more and more popular, but I think that is, while not necessarily better against Rogue, this lineup compared to the Giants version, the fact that they're still running the double condemns makes it still a viable anti-token Druid counter, which I think the Japanese players were considering that on their radar to have Priest be a counter against.
Very, very true. lambyseries is holding on to the Mancrick, absolutely, but keeping field contact here, it's very reminiscent of the way that Gabby played when he made his run through to be the champion of Masters Tour Orgrimmar, where whenever he was on the coin, field contact was just to keep, especially in these kind of greedy matchups like against Priest. So I think this is very heads up.
Pretty sure Gabby kept it even when he was on the plate. Just every matchup,
Sure.
I don't know. I've never seen him toss it. Have to go back and check if that's the case for sure. But I definitely think field contact is a very reasonable keep. It is the one card where, aside from Octobot, everything is centered around it, that it becomes even better if you have the field contact versus just keeping the activators, right? So I am definitely on board for keeping it, especially if Lamby is gonna get the Octobot this soon as well.
This is a fast hand from lambyseries. This gets up and goes really quick. We're, of course, looking at potentially even like Tenwu on Mancrick. You don't have to save it necessarily for Alexstrasza later on, because you can just go for the full-on 3-7 rather than 3-10 now game plan. But for the moment, at least, it does look like... I was going to say Slam Octobot, but I guess it's a little bit more complicated than just throwing that down, huh?
Yeah, honestly, on turn 1, I used to be the kind of player that says, let me slam this down. If they play Wandmaker, I'm happy. If they play Sethic, I'm happy. If they pass, I'm happy. That's not true. If they pass into Scorpid and you don't have an activator for your Octobot, you are not happy. And so there was an option to play it again on turn 2, but face against a Wand Maker, you got super punished by Apotheosis. So I think Lamby is absolutely fine to wait. He has a few more turns to possibly draw into an activator for the Octobot, or if not, just play it against an unchallenged board this turn alongside the Brain Freeze.
Big fan of this pick from Posesi as well, despite having 2 heal options and me just saying how valuable heal is against Rogue. Shoring up your mid-game development is a little bit more important, I think. And, you know, you can go for another Score Pit off the Raised Dead. Maybe you just get another one there. It should be just fine.
Yeah, Lamby rewarded for his patience now because he is ahead on board. The Octobot is now a much bigger problem for Posesi than it was previously. Even though he has Scorpid to play again this turn, I mean, even in the best case scenario for Posesi, it just gets traded down by the Mankrik. Better than nothing, though. Ooh, Smite! That's so strong here!
Yeah, that's pretty huge.
Now he gets to isolate the Octobot.
That's a real rough one. There's almost the possibility for a Vanessa to get him his own Holy Smite to deal with it, but just the tiniest bit of mana short. Because again, if you're wondering about the interaction, yes, the Octobot does get damaged, but the poison counts as killing it immediately. So here for Lamby, it's looking really tough as to how he even activates his Octobot. Do you go Wicked Stab Hero Power here just to keep it alive?
That's one play. There's also the surrender play of stab your own Octobot. Honestly, stabbing anything feels bad, right? Because that's so premium as a burst tool against Priest that we've talked about how important it is for Mage, for Rogue in the end game. But Lamby needs to get this hand cheapened in order to really get any benefit from the field contact. I think it might be stab his own Octobot.
Yeah, honestly, now that you lay it out, I'm kind of coming around to it. He could even go Vanessa plus Holy Smite as well to deal with the poison if he wanted to. But in the end, resting on just going for killing it off cleanly, and the Octobot gets to keep pushing another one to face, but it's not doing much more than that.
Yeah. To be fair, keeping it alive here is still pretty problematic for Posesi. I think Lamby will know that there's guaranteed another Scorpid because of the Raised Dead, so he says he's fine with that outcome, maybe getting something off of Vanessa to do next turn. But this does shut down, importantly, just Ogremancer. I guess it doesn't shut it down, but it makes it like such that if Posesi slams that, then Lamby gets the proc.
I think you're still looking at Ogremancer here, right? You can mess about with trying to make it so their Octobot doesn't proc, but eventually they're going to find, you know, Org Merchant, Plunderer, Brain Freeze if they really want to, just to activate it on their own.
Initiating overdrive.
And Lamby can go ahead and draw at least 2 cards here.
It's quiet.
And gets a discount on both Alex and Tenwu, which is pretty relevant. So ideally, Lamby doesn't want to have to play the Tenwu here.
Damn, okay. We're looking at a very interesting hand now. If he can get the second Octobot to proc as well, this is straight up 24 burst damage that lambyseries is going to have access to on like turn 9 even, without even needing to get to 10.
Right, but if he goes for that, he's kind of a sitting duck leading up until that turn. And
True.
Also very dead to Ilusha at any point. So I think it did have to be the Tenwu here to keep the train going. I guess he can pick up another Ogremancer.
Yeah, I think this is a good middle ground here from Lamby. He gets to keep up some amount of tempo right now. As you said, double Ogremancer shores up his next few turns, but he still has Tenwu Alex Straza combo for 16 burst damage. Even if it's not the full 24, this may still be enough.
Yeah, I definitely like this better. Problem is, there's still no good answer for Ogremancer. Slamming down his own is not so great because he knows there's Scorpid on the other side. Kazakus is going to have to come in big once again for Lamby here.
Yeah, I think I'm liking the look of gearing up for playing palm readings here now. It reduces enough cards, and then the Condemn is pretty clutch. Wow. Okay.
So I guess preemptively developing the Scorpid is to prevent just Ogremancer from Lamby, or at least he'll have the immediate answer. And you can still take this VT with the Ogremancer, then Flash Heal it back up. As for this spell, I guess having too many Condemns never hurts against Rogue.
Yeah, I think I'm still leaning towards Condemn. The Shadow of Death was, of course, interesting because it does something that none of the other cards in your hand does. But yeah, it's just very, very strong against Rogue. in the case of all these wide boards. And again, awkward turn now for Lamby. No clean answer at all to this Ogremancer, or even really just to the Scorpid.
Right, that's why Posesi prioritized putting it down last turn. I want to note that Posesi had an opportunity to maybe trade down the 3-2 with his Ogremancer, then VT the Octobot and leave a Vanessa isolated on the board, which could then, you know, VT the one maker. But I actually feel that's potentially better for Posesi.
Okay, fair enough.
Except Octobot has happened before, and the Vanessa would have just gotten a flash heal by that point, which is not really great if it got stepped.
He's gone for 1 mana again, and he did get the option for deal 3 damage. I mean, that's a clear still on the Scorpid. And then you can with
but
Octobot.
I guess so.
Okay.
Why do I get the sinking feeling that this Alex is going into an Ogre match?
Yeah, it's starting to feel that way, isn't it?
Well, Posesi has definitely gotten a lot of mileage out of the Ogremancer so far and continues to do so. If he can find a way now to beat the Octobot without proccing it, he absolutely would take it. So he started with Palm Reading to try and hit a buff. Doesn't find it though. Another Palm Reading to try.
Yeah, I like it. You got Apo and Powered Feast as well as both very, very powerful options. And it's just good as well. It reduces a lot of powerful cards.
Yep.
I must consider.
In terms of what Insight can get him, it's still nothing that immediately deals with the Octobot, but misses again, so Lamby is going to get another proc here. So for Posesi, all he has to do now is just gear up for what is the worst case scenario against a double discounted hand. And you'd have to imagine it's something like Jandis, Tenwu Jandis, all on one turn. So Hysteria?
Yeah, I'm a little more interested in Hysteria than the Spirits. Like, he does have plenty of removal, of course, with a double Condemn Holy Smite, but he has plenty of development as well with Insight, Idol of Yashaj, and Ysera. But, man, he's going tempo of his own here as the operative game plan.
All right. Oh, Illusion.
Wow.
1 mana.
Wow. That's interesting.
Very much. Although it's funny that Posesi's hand is discounted like even more than Lamby's at the moment.
Right.
Not sure if he wants to Elucia in the near future, or at least he'll dump some of these cards before he does that. But for Lamby now, this is the window that he was hoping for. 1 turn off from being able to deal 16, and I'm not even sure that's necessarily good. So I think this could still just be Alex on the 3-7.
Really? Oh, I'd be much more interested in like Ogremancer Neophyte. Like, I think that's way too good to give up.
Yeah, this is saying that Posesi doesn't have a way to deal with this without using spells. But the problem is, for priests, they can use some spells and then just end on Condemn.
Yeah.
And so the Ogremancer is really not that good in my opinion. However, fitting in Cult Neophyte is the concession that lambyseries makes. The big discounts from Palm Reading is going to laugh in the face of that though.
Yeah, bump and then flash heal your own guy was kind of interesting there just because it gives you another card. But I guess if you're gearing up for a Mind Render turn anyway, that's not all too much of a concern.
You can do the Alex thing, but they're both going in minions.
Right, yeah. I mean, at this point, I'm starting to come around to it a bit more. He is not currently winning this game.
Care to make a wager, friend?
Sure. Evolving.
Yes, yeah, that's the out.
He doesn't need the biscuit is the problem. He has the mana to do the combo. His opponent's just too high. He hasn't done enough damage in the mid game.
Combo just doesn't get there. So the finale lets him the combustion finally lets him clear off the Ogremancer with trade into combustion. But then there's just a giant Sethek staring him down.
Not you.
Gotta kill it. I mean, Lamby has actively... Okay, I guess not.
Yeah, just ignoring it. Sure, trying to sneak in the extra damage. Maybe if Posesi doesn't have an answer to all of this, he can just creep in with like 16 damage and then draw wicked stabs next turn to win the game. It's like, it's as good a chance as any if there's no apotheosis.
Well, minimum Posesi does this turn is, I guess, trade 3-7 into 3-5 Ogremancer, then 10-10 into 3-7. Then he plays a bunch of spells and ends on the Condemn. So he can fit in the Auspicious Spirits. I think he'll definitely play the Flash Heal as well.
Yeah, I mean, with the Ysera in hand, he's not a million miles away from lethal, so I would honestly consider that as well, because you can, of course, get Nightmare off of that. So pushing damage to face is worth quite a bit, actually, at the end of this turn.
Sure. You can leave one 3-5 Ogremancer up. That's not a big deal if he's going to Flash Heal his own face as well.
Ooh, do you ever actually end the turn on a Lucia? Because you can just give your opponent a hand that you know can't deal with your big minion, right?
Just give them Ysera? Sure.
Playing the Draconic Studies does mess with that, though, because now they can go Ysera plus the Dream, whereas before they couldn't. So, yeah, this is still fine, obviously. Very unlikely they will be able to deal with this. I was just wondering if there's a way to, like, lock out the game, almost.
Yeah, this is still extremely powerful, and he is still setting up counter-lethal, almost. It's 2 damage off, but with 1 Nightmare, it is lethal, so covers all the bases. And for Lamby...
So many options.
Ysera into minions, it's still like that. Every turn it just gets worse and worse. Like the first turn it was only 1 minion. Second turn it had to go into 2 minions. And this turn it has to go into 2, but it's not even clearing the board. Yeah,
the problem is that you can't even go Secret Passage and hope to clear off some of the stuff because these Ogremances just shut that down, right?
Yep.
I mean, again, maybe your best chance is just to go Secret Passage into... There's only 1 Wicked Stab left. It's still only rank 2. I don't know. I just think the only chance he has of cheesing a win is with this full combo. If he gets another Shadow Step, then it could do 24, potentially.
Okay, Prize Plunderers and the wife? So he can stay alive on board? No, he can't. If he plays the Mancrake's wife and still removes 4 damage, then there's still 23 on board, I think.
I think so too, yeah.
That's not there.
Priest just looking absolutely dominant there for Posesi, just curving out aggressively at the start, making sure there's always value to throw down. And, you know, I was going to say that the healing is nice in the deck, obviously, to fight back against the burst damage. It wasn't even needed, because he just had the board on lock right from, like, turn 5 once the Ogremancer came down. And at that point, lambyseries had no avenue back into the game. We can talk, of course, about your line that I think definitely he will be thinking about of going for Alex trade. But at the end of the day, my instincts still seem to say that lambyseries was probably correct and that getting some kind of burst lethal was probably his best chance.
Yeah, it's really close. I mean, my line gave him a way to survive, but it was still contingent on immediately drawing something like Jandice to actually consolidate the board game plan. It's just really tough to say because depending on what the priest hand has, did they generate more healing? You can't know if the board game plan is more reasonable than just trying to burst them down. But the back-to-back Ogre-Mancers are absolutely back-breaking for Rogue. That is not up for debate. We do see lambyseries now on the Token Druid as his best possible counter to priest, and that's already feeling like it's a pipe dream, right? Obviously, still a bit better than Rush Warrior in my opinion, but this is a double condemn list we're talking about. It's gonna be rough.
Yeah, this is a fat yikes. Again, I will say that the Token Druid, it's not quite so vulnerable to these removal heavy control decks as you may initially think, because like the reputation, I feel like, or your instinct is to say it's like a 20% matchup or something, because they just obliterate every board. But there's very much boards that you can make that the priest can struggle with. You can make them too big for a single condemn to clear. You can make your big boards before turn 5, so condemn doesn't even clear the tokens yet off of Glowfly Swarm. So it's definitely far from unwinnable from lambyseries, but at the same time, a single big Xyrella very often can just end the game on the spot. Like, it's not a good matchup for the Druid at all.
Right, same with Samuro. And on top of that, I think the other unsung hero for the Priest is Venomous Scorpid. That can come down a lot of the time before Glowfly does. Not only can it give the Priest additional ways of dealing with the board, it often value trades 2 Glowflies on its own. And the Priest is sometimes able to just stick Sethek early, create a giant minion. It's like the new Edwin to beat Token Druid. And then there's Ogremancers. That's also really, really powerful in the matchup as long as Posesi's not too far behind on board come turn 5.
Yeah, I definitely think it's one that's worth holding on to, because again, in terms of if they do go for a really, really early Glowfly, like if they play it on turn 3, there's not much in your deck that can actually clear that. So it's not like you're mulliganing for better removal solutions. So I was kind of interested in keeping the Ogremancers just because it can give you a lockout victory. But Posesi instead digging for more, you'd have to imagine the cards that we were talking about. Zarella, Samuro for 4 mana is a little awkward. You'd rather, of course, get it for 2 off of the Insight. But it's still a decent card to pick up for sure.
Right. And I do, at the very least, very much like the keep of Scorpid. There's pretty much nothing you'd rather be doing on turn 3, especially on the play when you don't have that many cards to discount with the palm reading. Okay, that's an interesting pickup for Lamby.
It is.
He doesn't have like Power of the Wild though, which is the one that you really want to use to consolidate the Gibberling board. If he just goes Gibberling super wide here, he is literally dead to rank 1 Condemn.
I think you just chill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you said, Condemn is a big one. But the thing is, you want to fit in this Lunar Eclipse. So if they do play a proactive 2-drop here, it's honestly good for you. It allows you to power up your Gibberling turn even further. So yeah, waiting here for a turn for Lamby, because who knows, with this much mana available with Coin and Lightning Bloom, as soon as he finds Pride's Fury or Soul of the Forest or even Arbor up, he could play it all in the same turn as the Gibberling.
Yeah, that's super powerful as well. It doesn't line up well for Condemn nor for Hysteria. And Posesi also had kind of an option there to play Insight for no corrupted value if he feels like he just wants to get the mana spent. But I think he's in no rush. What is the best thing he could get off Insight anyway? Zyrella, perhaps? So like he could still play that on turn 4 because he's not going to tempo Samuro. Oh,
now, however,
yeah,
with the Prides, you are absolutely slamming this down. Coin, Adorable, Luna, Prides, sign me up. And that is going to be a nightmare for Posesi to clear.
Oi, oi, oi. Not much time to work with, even though these have not the highest attack on them. It's miles away from being able to clear with Condemn. So we're going digging, I think, is Posesi. Insight for exactly Zyrella is what's on the menu here, and then try to clear it next turn.
Definitely feels that way. If you go for Thrive first and hit Condemn, that I think is just not good enough, right? Even if that allows you to go Samuro next turn, Samuro still would just not be quite enough to actually clear off most of these minions.
Right. He's got to think bigger. And if the Insight misses, he can still go Thrive to pick up 1 Condemn and then hopefully top deck the other from his perspective. So the best thing that Scorpid could give him is probably still just Condemn, right?
Right, and so in that case, do you ever go Thrive this turn? Because then that gives you the fringe possibility of getting exactly Condemn and then going Scorpid double Condemn next turn.
That's my thinking. The only upside for Scorpid is it can trade down a minion this turn, but Posesi, I think, should be in the mindset where he's got to take down everything at once. He disagrees, though, and there's a Condemn, okay?
Oh my
Looking for the next one, but if he plays Thrive for it next turn, there's not enough mana, so it's like Renew to find Condemn now?
Yeah, I mean, he could spend the mana on, like you said, Renew now to hope to find it. Palm Readings does still work if it gets exactly Condemned, because it would reduce the cost of both of them. So there are outs here for for Posesi, to clear this. It's still possible.
If it's off the top, but he can't go Thrive and then Palm Reading and then Condemn.
No,
doesn't fit. Lamby can just kill this with a hero power and a trade. Or the Lunar Eclipse if he values every minion. Does it make any difference for Hysteria? I don't really think so if you have 6 versus 7 minions. Gonna value the Lunar Eclipse a little bit more, especially since I guess using the Lunar there would also eat up the spell burst on his 1 remaining Gibberling.
Yeah, and it also just makes, you know, Glowfly worse, another Gibberling top deck worse. I think it's not quite worth it here.
Okay, Condemn ranked up.
Ooh, next turn.
Expensive. Yeah.
After he plays the palm readings here, he just needs to survive the turn. Gets Power Word Feast, can go with the Samuro, but there's no time. Devouring Plague is too expensive to go with the Condemn in hand. It's all so close.
I think he just takes the Smite, right? So he can go Condemn this turn plus Smite, and then all he needs to do is survive because he has the trump card next turn. He has the trump combo, I should say, between Samuro and Apotheosis. Just survive, but that means that Lamby cannot hit Arbor up off this next draw. Actually, he technically can, and Lamby would still be, Posesi would still be alive.
Yeah, alive at 2, which is huge because even with Power of the Wild, that's the same amount of damage, right, in terms of immediate impact. And it's not lethal, it's 2 off.
What? Tell you what though, if Lamby had Lunar Eclipsed instead of traded, I mean, it looked good at the time, but you would have thought that the margin would be this thin.
Job's done.
Oy, oy, oy.
And to be fair, the fact that he is able to go for this play does mean that Samuro Apotheosis does not clear the board. It leaves 3 4-1s in play, which is a big difference.
It leaves...
Oh, sorry, no, you trade that way, sorry. 2, yeah.
No, you're right. It's
Oh, no, yeah, I was... Okay, trust my instincts.
sorry, yeah. Lamby now, in terms of top decks for immediate lethal, it's just not there, right? He doesn't have the mana to go Solar Arbor up. But if he goes Fungal into Lightning Bloom, and I don't think it's there either.
Yeah, I mean, for Posesi, I think he can figure out he's so unlikely to be dead that it's worth not playing this because of the potential top deck of Xyrella. If they hit exactly Pride's Fury, would be the scary play, right?
I think that's right. Oh, and Lamby can't even kill this without trading.
Well, you can, right? You could go Solar Lunar.
Solar Lunar. I hate it.
I hate it
might
too.
Be his best play.
Honestly, it might be correct because you set up 2-turn lethal, right?
And then he can play the Glowfly for 0.
Yeah. Okay, I mean, this is the alternative route, of course, where you can go for top deck of Arbor Up, which is... I mean, it's impossible for me to calculate on the spot exactly how likely either is, but this is still a play with a game plan in mind.
Aw, but the game plan might be dead now, Derek. This second Condemn, Samuro back to the hand, Scorpid for more value. It's just not getting there.
Yeah, I love the use of Hysteria over the Condemn because that is by far the more valuable card. Probably Devouring Plague, but I would definitely hear out the argument for Insight. Sure.
Yeah, Posesi's just not falling behind. You know, even unbuffed Samuro with Condemn is very much often a full board clear, but Lamby has maybe been thrown a little bit of hope here. 6 cards most of the time drawn.
I mean, this is a very real ray of hope. This is, all of a sudden, not over.
Vate, another Fungal? Oh no.
That's not great, but sure. Yep, Vate Fungal.
Guaranteed to draw him 3.
Just to guarantee, to give him a higher chance as possible of going... oh no, sorry, he can't go Solar plus Arbor. He's used both Solar Eclipses, right? But I mean, basically just play anything, right? It doesn't matter exactly what it is, but just to develop a board is the game plan now.
And we're seeing here for Posesi the upside of going for Insight because this is the window that he needs to consolidate his board, make it such that if Lamby is immediately able to refill, and he will with the Glowfly Swarm, that Posesi can fight back as best as possible. Lamby taking the time to math out how quickly can he set up a lethal. Its problem is next turn it's only Glowfly. He cannot fit in a buff spell alongside it. So it might even be wait next turn, depending on what he draws off the top.
Right. And here for Posesi, I've kind of like a look of Sethic and then renew on the Sethic. Like, healing himself. Wow! Okay, is decent. But Ogremancer off of the Insight is way better than anything that I was considering. That is absolutely backbreaking.
And he was, like, decent odds to get, if not the other Ogremancer, then something like Zyrella.
True,
or even
yeah.
Elucia would have been decent. Not that on the turn he plays Insight, but a bit later on.
Great point. Yeah, it was just better, I think, than what I was considering.
Lamby still has to go Glowfly here, I assume.
You'd think so.
And he probably then hero powers the Ogremancer first to give him break points after.
Honestly, maybe you do just pass here. You hope their hand is absolute garbage, and then you go Glowfly Soul of the Forest next turn, because or Glowfly Pride's Fury, because I just don't see Glowfly getting there if you go for it here.
That's fair. Oh. Obviously, Justicera is a possibility, but I think on average he's able to get like more attack power by going Draconic Studies. And of course, he can start Draconic and still play Ysera, depending on his options.
Yeah, I'm very interested in playing Ysera on this turn just because it gives you Nightmare to go with the Samuro, which basically just guarantees you a board clear on anything that they can put down, almost.
Fair. I guess it also just gives... Oh, wait, is he getting Awakens? It's the last card. Oh, sorry, yeah, he misses on the Emerald. And that's fine.
Yeah, it just gives him two incredibly powerful AoE tools, which Druid simply cannot fight back against. Like here, if he needs to, it could be Samuro Nightmare, and then Ysera Awakens as well, or other way around, whatever. The board clear is available, if Lethal isn't available already.
And it's not... But he very clearly doesn't even have to Awakens because of this Condemn in hand. It is just too easy for Posesi to set up the 2-turn lethal, and there's nothing Lamby can do about it. The Ogremancer deleting a turn from Lamby was just so clutch.
Nice mana utilization as well with the Sethic. Let's generate some extra cards. Try and find an extra removal spell if you even needed it with the Holy Nova. Go on, do that just to tilt them. It's worth it.
Lamby is nodding like he has some hope, but he has to know if all of these trades are going face, it's just not gonna happen. Because he didn't play the tilting card. Trick misplay.
It does not matter. I mean, honestly, you could argue it's a strict misplay just because at this point there is literally no win condition for lambyseries, so you may as well just go to try and tilt them a little bit. But I do think Lamby is the kind of player to not let such trivialities get to his mentality. Who knows? Maybe he sees a line that we don't. If it ever was going to offer itself, guidance surely is the way to get there.
Venarian into Troublemaker? Nah, I don't see it.
Celestial Alignment? Does that ever get there?
No.
No, it doesn't.
But you gotta hand it to Lamby for thinking about something. Takes a lot of fortitude to not concede to just seeing the Ogremancer.
Yuck.
Lamby is gonna throw it down, even if he doesn't concede here. Posesi has a lot of damage.
Yeah, I mean, there's infinite value, infinite board clear.
Wait, is Lamby going for the tilt by roping the 0 outer? Maybe.
I don't know. But whatever he's looking for, I hope he finds it. Both in and out of the game.
Okay, finds a way to stay alive on board from what he can see. Apotheosis. There's gotta be some angle here, right?
Yes. One off at the moment. So he's just searching for it.
Okay, yep. Thanks, Posesi, for trying to get this done as soon as possible.
Or, I guess, sorry, not factoring in the taunt, so it's a little bit more than that off. But Powered Fortitude, I think, does just allow him to close out the game.
Fitting in a nice little Miracle Priest turn at the end there as well. I'd love to see it.
I mean, it's exact lethal, but he needs to get through the taunt together, so it's still just that little bit off, quite hilariously.
If the play... Oh yeah, he doesn't even have mana to do the play.
Yeah.
Zessi's just going through a lethal puzzle, inventing obstacles for himself. But to be fair, that's exactly what we were doing.
Yeah.
The Eternal Bane of Priest. You're winning so hard, but you just can't kill them on that turn.
Yeah, 1 damage off. I think as long as you kill the minions on the board, you will win this game of Hearthstone.
I'm gonna go ahead and say, even if he didn't kill the minions on the board, he would have won that game of Hearthstone.
I concede.
There we go. Nicely done, Lamby. And I respect him trying to find the small percentage out. But that does mean Posesi 2-1 up now, getting, what is that now, 2 in a row with the Priest, as we kind of expected. Taking down the Rogue is, you know, a big upset, or not a big upset, but a big win for him, even if it was somewhat expected. Druid, of course, we expected the Priest to win. And now for lambyseries, this is kind of what we almost anticipated would happen. This is the real weakness of his lineup, is he has left himself very vulnerable to double control deck. And with the fact that he essentially had to ban the warrior out of the way, now with Priest versus this Rush Warrior that he's brought, despite the fact that he 3-0'd his opponent yesterday on Rush Warrior, I think he's going to have a very tall order to do that against the Priest.
Indeed. And if we're going through lambyseries' head and trying to figure out why it is he left a Priest, I would wager the guess that he actually feels more comfortable with the Rush Warrior versus Priest than he does with Rush Warrior versus Control Warrior. And it remains to be seen how that matchup actually plays out, because there's so little sample size of Control Warrior on GM, but expect it to maybe get more popular in the coming weeks. And we'll see if Lamby can manage to pull off this Rush Warrior in the unfavorable matchup, because as it stands, Priest is completely undefeated this week in APAC, including the initial matches in game score. It just has not dropped a game whenever it's been left up.
No, you're right. Did we see it at all yesterday? We didn't, right? And now it's just undefeated so far today. So it's for Posesi. It's not only his own game on the line, but the honor of Anduin. He needs to get this one as a dub, just so he can keep it at 100% win rate. And in all honesty, it feels like he's very likely to do so, Gia, because unless some drastic revelation in the playstyle of Rush Warrior has emerged in the last couple of weeks, I do still think that despite the high amount of value and damage it is able to generate, it's just not enough to take down all the removal and board development from Priest.
It just happens that the type of board that Rush Warrior builds is often very vulnerable to Hysteria, which, even though it's been hit by a nerf, is very difficult to play around from the Warrior's perspective, because conditioning buffs the hand uniformly, and then if a bunch of things have high health on them, then they can keep hitting into each other with Hysteria. It's also worth noting that the Warrior did also get hit a little bit by the nerf to Crab Rider in the matchup, because sometimes you can cheese a win by sticking a Sage Dive / conditioning buff on that, and then having it go face for a couple of turns. Not an option anymore, because it only has Wind Fury on the turn it's played. So it's difficult to see how lambyseries can get through this, but you know, Rush Warrior is very capable of curving out, and Priest doesn't always draw the goods. So Lamby can definitely still get there, and with his quality of play on Rush Warrior, if anyone can do it, it's him.
So in terms of the starting hand against Priest, do you see it as, well, he mulligans very quickly, but I was going to say, is there ever any consideration to keep Troublemaker, just as like, as you sometimes do against control decks, you keep the one big threat for the late game in your starting hand and just hope that the early game will sort itself out?
That's worth thinking about, but Honestly, against Priest, just things like Scorpid and Sethic and Wandmaker sticking on the early board is pretty threatening. And if you have nothing to answer that with, then the Troublemaker is kind of a moot point later on. In terms of greedy cards to keep, I would say probably just Watley. Card draw is absolutely premium here. And this top deck for Lamby is quite good indeed, so he has a way to deal with the Sethic. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the coin is very valuable here. I mean, honestly, I was almost wondering again if it was conditioning specifically because he had the Warmal Challenger, but I think against Priest, you have to play way greedier than that if you want to have a chance. And the Axe should, from his perspective at least, be able to deal with most of the early game on its own.
Yeah, true. Coin is valuable, like you said, because of Troublemaker. And Lamby is saying if you have the Apotheosis, or it's not likely you have the Apotheosis, so he was going to wait to deal with the Sethic. Posesi has now put 2 threats on the board, but Lamby can still just Warmal the 2-3 if he likes. Alternative is Parade Leader plus Crab Rider, but I think we've already gone over how the coin could be crucial to Lamby here. And if he can help it, sticking more conditioning targets is better.
Yeah, exactly. It's not only the coin Troublemaker that's a possibility, it's like conditioning into coin Playmaker, Parade Leader, Crab Rider, and just try to put one big board that maybe by some miracle the Priest can't answer. And now, interestingly enough, despite the fact that we do find that one Hysteria, and it would clear the board here, I think you, again, have to set your sights much more greedily in this matchup.
Drive, probably for Posesi. I think it's a tall order to expect any minion to stick from this point on, where Lamby has had a weapon and can rush things. Thrive can help him find Condemn if he needs it. He's only running the one Hysteria, but Posesi is going to go ahead and take the Feast. To be fair, Feast with the Scorpid is pretty threatening.
Ooh, Soul Mirror is the juice in this matchup. Again, so much of it feels like it revolves around Troublemaker, because if you want to talk about a good card to counteract Troublemaker, how about killing their own one and the 3/3s and then spawning your own 3/3s to take care of the rest of the Troublemaker? That is the answer to Troublemaker, and it's often just the death knell for Warrior in the matchup.
However, Lamby has drawn, I think, the best possible card off the top there, coining the Watley. That's perfectly worth it to deviate from the Troublemaker for, because he gets way more conditioning targets next turn, and this might be the way to try and beat Posesi before Soul Mirror comes online. Although it looks like just Scorpid and Power Word here is pretty powerful, although Hysteria's not the cleanest as well.
Yeah, he had the. I was going to say had the potential to hit Ogremancer. He does. You know, now that you see it, it maybe doesn't look quite so good. You'd rather save it for a clearer board. But I guess just saying, I don't know, if you can snipe. Sorry, if they have to conditioning, then you get at least a 2/2 off of it. So it's not dreadful.
Yeah, it's just the best stats he can put on board for that turn. Fair enough. So I think it's still worth it to start conditioning, because then he can Crab Rider and that deals with the 2/2 and then partially with the Ogremancer.
Yeah, I was going to say you could start Bumper Car and then rush it in, because then you have the 7 damage to clear it off before you play conditioning, and you get to buff 2 1/1s as well, which is more important than the Bumper Car itself most of the time.
Yeah, that's definitely worth looking at. Lamby says doesn't want a conditioning at all this turn, and so he can push more damage to the face immediately. I think that's also very valid, because he is just trying to be as aggressive as possible. In terms of a anti-Hysteria board, this is, I guess, decent. The 3/5 is not likely to kill off everything before it hits into the 5/2.
So are we instead just looking at Scorpid Condemn? It clears off a lot of stuff and puts a minion that's at least annoying on the other side?
I'm looking at Beast Hysteria, if that does anything, onto the Watley. I think that would definitely clear everything but the 1/4. Or, like, the only bad scenario is if only the 1/4 survives, and that's kind of the same as what he's achieved with just Hysteria. I don't know if the odds change at all, but if he figured out that it's likely to do this by saving 1 card anyway, then it's just strictly better.
Yeah, I mean, the Power Word Feast gave him the guarantee to clear off the 2-2, whereas otherwise it might have just gone straight into the Tent Trasher. But that's fine. I still think that Posesi made probably the best call there in that instance. Samuro being picked up is a big deal now, especially with... Okay, some interesting options now, because I was going to say more buffs to go with the Samuro, but second Soul Mirror starts to look pretty juicy as well. You can never have too many in the matchup.
This is just crazy now. And the fact that Lamby hasn't conditioned for this long is probably because he has all these card draw things in his hand right now. Although he kind of wants to corrupt these stage dives, which would require him to play, I guess, minimum bumper car. And then he can draw and then invest the conditioning, which is in line with what we were saying of just play as greedy as possible in the matchup.
Yeah, I mean, he's literally just drawn spells like 5 cards in a row, so it makes sense that he is going for the slightly different ordering that you would usually see on conditioning.
Does
this have a Rakara now? Like, you can just get some immediate buffage. Okay.
So it's interesting to me that he didn't go athletics studies before conditioning.
Yeah.
Okay, he's just not playing it. I don't know what happened there.
I think he honestly kind of wanted to, but then was just like at the end, no, I'm not admitting that one.
I don't know. Maybe he just hovered by accident. But
yeah,
the 3-3 on board this turn does have its upsides, of course, just threatening more damage. And Lamby does have to tread that balance of greed and tempo every single turn so that Posesi can't just play a big threat of his own and put Lamby behind. Posesi has so many resources, though. It doesn't even have to be the Samuro Apo this turn. Like, he could greed that out even further, but you just have to consider what are the implications of Troublemaker next turn. And for that, he has Soul Mirror.
Starting with the Raised Edge, sure. Double Scorpion, man.
Death, yes.
Yeah, okay. Condemn almost allowed for a full clear with the Devouring. It wasn't super clean, but it would have cleared off a lot more.
The Death is super powerful in combination with the Soul Mirror because then he can snipe the 8-2 that's left on this big Troublemaker.
True. Yep.
And then even in the disaster scenario where both the 3-3s miss it, like, he clears and gets to keep both the 3-3s.
Great point. But now I'm looking at some real spicy combos available. Like Playmaker Rakara allows for +2/+2 on all of these minions attacking face. Like, you're not committing that much, to be perfectly honest, to get such a huge amount of buff on your board.
Yeah, certainly worth looking at. And for the last 2 mana, he could even go with the Parade Leader, because the bumper card would actually overdraw him by that point, I think, if you play it post Playmaker. He's going to go ahead and just go Troublemaker here. Well, Posesi's not naturally running Soul Mirror in the deck, I believe, so Lamby won't really have that on his mind, but he's going to get some bad news.
Yeah, he is. And that Shadow of Death you were talking about, oh, actually, I guess having said that, it could just be conditioning instead and then save the death, maybe for like Alex Straza, if you're afraid of that as a very real possibility at this point in the game. Or maybe it's just a Samuro clear. Okay.
Samuro, Apo, and Death. That looks pretty powerful as well. Gets to stick a lot of HP on the Samuro.
Yeah, fair enough. Again, I mean, there were still yet more options. We could have even seen Soul Mirror plus Power Word Feast on your own Troublemaker just to heal it all the way up. And then even if it misses, it's not the end of the world. But I think with this line, he gets nothing can go wrong. It's just decent. And of course means he sticks something of his own in play as well.
Just keep moving.
Okay, Lamby now has the hand space to go for this if he just plays the Dark Moon Rider as well.
Here for a good time. Here for a good time.
And it's a great refill as far as, you know, most situations go. But the Soul Mirror, again, is so backbreaking here.
Obviously,
and
first of all,
Posesi can immediately play one of the tokens that he gets from the Soul Mirror to kill off the rest of the Parade Leader.
Right, yeah. The The one thing I think you look at first is just if there's any way you can get away with not using it, like Condemn, Holy Smite, maybe if you find something better here. But after all of that is exhausted, I think, agreed, that does just leave too much damage on the board, so Soul Mirror looks pretty juicy.
So premium. Like, this was Lamby's all-in push. Oh, I guess there's still quite a lot of cards in hand, but only the Rakara now is buffed by the conditioning that's left, I believe.
He actually has an even better line, right? He can just go Soul Mirror and then Powered Feast his own guy and then Holy Smite to clear off the other playmaker.
Oh, yeah. It's also disgustingly strong.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking at... wow, he doesn't want to play it. Could have been a 6-7, right, on this side of the board rather than a 4-1. That feels worth it to me.
It does, doesn't it? And it also would have lived past just the swing of the weapon from Lamby. Maybe he's just holding out for a Sethic turn.
Yes, I mean, it's obviously very, very good with the Sethic later on, but I think he has just about enough juice to go with that anyway. And even if it just soaks up two buffed 3/3 runners, like, that's fine. That's 2 minions that you've effectively dealt with just a single Powered Feast.
Although, having said that, Lamby's, well, just board push dream, I think, is well and truly over now. I think we are looking at an ETC win condition for him in combination with Alexstrasza at this point. It's a bit hopeful because Posesi is literally on full health right now, but I'm not seeing it get there otherwise.
It's fair enough. Maybe if this Alexstrasza sticks and gets to connect for another 8, you're looking at the potential to be able to get there. And, I mean, currently the best answer is like Dream from the Ysera, which is obviously not a good answer at all. So for Posesi, it's time to go digging.
And does that mean with Scorpid first or with Sethic? Okay, this is what he held onto the feast for.
I guess he can buff up the Dark Moon Rider, actually, right? Which will allow him to clear it a little more easily.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Here for a good time.
Good card as well. Condemn's great to get.
Oh,
Ooh.
kind of illegal that. Just be way ahead on board.
Yeah, that's just better. I like that a lot. The only thing you're afraid of now is obviously second Troublemaker, which you're maybe leaving yourself short of an answer to if you go for the Shadowed Ruin here.
That's fair. So if it is just Condemn this turn, he can even preemptively Apotheosis if he likes to keep the Sethic train going. He says Shadowed Ruin is better so that against everything but the Troublemaker, he probably just sticks more stats.
Oh, that is
Plus
top
3?
deck.
Plus
My
3.
Goodness, do you go... I mean, obviously
How do you
Samuro... well, yes. But then in terms of the minions you're playing, like Samuro, Rakara, and a bunch of 1/1s? Like,
Oh!
sure. Another Rakara?
Yeah, sign me up for that. He can get out of single Condemn range.
Oh!
The rabbit!
Really? Is that really correct?
I don't know. I mean, it's gonna deal with Ysera at some point. I mean, I think Lamby's just going for unexpected things right now.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah.
If he's not taking second Rakara, I'd imagine he is just holding on to these 1/1s for some ETC type of win condition.
Okay. Fair enough.
But I just did not expect the rabbit in a million years, to be honest.
Yeah, me neither.
I've been seeing some new Rush Warrior lists, like tweeted by Edelweiss, I believe, who hit like top 200 legend with clowns in the top end to use conditioning with. And then sometimes you can corrupt the crowns if you discover Dark Moon Rabbit. But
Okay. Okay,
this is not that deck.
It's most certainly not. But here we go. Finally, time for the Ysera to come down. And it's pretty good. You know, you get to sap away the Rakara and reduce its stats drastically. But it's a lot of damage already. Like, we're looking at... Is this lethal with ETC? It's getting close, even if it's not there yet.
Yeah, the ETC is currently 8 burst damage. Well, I guess with Rikara, another 2. And Posesi now, sorry, Lamby now has this dilemma of, I want to leave the Ysera up because I want targets for ETC if I top deck it, but he doesn't want to leave an Apotheosis target up that can be combined with Nightmare for a lot of healing. I think it's fine to clear it because a lot of worlds Posesi still has to play minions the very next turn.
It's just how you clear it, right? Because you know there's Ysera Awakens in hand, so you don't want to just leave low health minions like this Krastenov knocking about. But I guess what choice have you got?
Just conceding that the Krastenov is probably going to die, but it has done its job. Buffed the weapon up, gotten an extra charge. Samuro clocking in for some more damage. Posesi has the clear, but it's kind of expensive. Well, I guess Awakens 1 Condemn is fine.
Yeah, that palm readings is a big top deck as well. Just makes his hand so much more fluid.
Ashiel.
Ooh, Psych Split? Are you ever getting away with that as an option? Like, just play it on the Samuro right now? I guess the symmetrical effect on your Ysera Awakens is a little scary. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, the Nova also has utility with the second Condemn because that gives him a breakpoint that can deal with the Dark Moon Riders all the way up to 4/4.
Yeah, that's very true.
So this turn, I think it's just Awakens and Condemn. Oh, okay. Just gonna hold on to Condemn altogether then.
Sure.
Okay, the Scorpid, which is fine to play because maximum of 1 minion can rush into it only.
Other palm readings? It's that or Plague, but palm readings again. It's just good. Just cheats out a lot of mana.
I think Posesi has this in the bag because he knows from this point that Lamby's best burst option after having seen Alexstrasza is the ETC. And
Yeah.
Posesi literally doesn't have a way to put health on board that all the 4/4s can rush into on the same turn. So he's actually not, Lamby's not actually able to put forth that much burst even if he did draw the ETC here.
I guess the game plan is to stick the Dark Moon Riders on the board then, and hope to get the lethal that way. But as we can see, like maybe if lambyseries like drip feeds them 1 or 2 at a time, it might be difficult for Posesi to effectively clear them every turn.
Maybe. That feels like the out now. And he's also just got to swing into the Scorpid to help that board dream stay alive. Investing Rikara alongside one of them is probably okay. Because Posesi really just doesn't have to play minions if he feels like he is going to lose to ETC.
Oh, he's taking the buff. Okay, I mean, this makes them 5/5s, which I'm sure there's some breakpoints, like double Holy Nova generated. It makes it harder to kill in that respect.
Maybe. One thing Lamby is doing is drip feeding something onto the board, never all in at once. His hand is almost entirely face up to Posesi now, though. There's just that one card generated by Athletic Studies that Posesi needs to be scared of, potentially. And I don't think he'll have the rabbit on his mind. Scariest for me would probably just be another Kargath that can generate a prime.
Okay, starting with the One Maker, then the palm readings you'd have to imagine. Renew is excellent.
Ruin would be able to clear all the 5/5 riders if they come down at once.
Yeah, I think if he'd been keeping track, it was actually better to just take Ruin there. It's obviously difficult to realize, but he should know, right, exactly that these are 1-mana 5/5s. It's face-up information.
Well, he does have both now, so Lamby has no outs as long as Posesi doesn't play too many minions, and he cannot play enough minions for all the riders to rush into. Dark, this is a sad rabbit.
It's a very sad rabbit indeed. Yeah, the Ruin is just, I think, going to make quick work of this for lambyseries. The turn after you've seen a Holy Nova plus Condemn, it feels like as good a time as any as you're going to get to go all in. I agree with you. I just don't think the ETC game plan gets there anymore. So I'm kind of in favor of just dumping all of these except the rabbit on the board.
I wonder.
He has seen quite a few condemns, right? Lamby just can't live in a world where Shadow Word Ruin exists. He is running out of outs and he's losing to just the rest of Posesi's deck if he doesn't go all in. I guess you can say I'm scared of Cyrella, so he can still potentially drip feed maybe 2 of them, hold on to another 2. I really don't know.
You're afraid of so many things, right? It's best to just say, I hope he doesn't have it. He probably does, but there's a chance he doesn't. And so he goes all in here with his remaining threats. That rabbit in hand, despite being a 5-5, mind you, I still don't think is impressive enough to get the win, as Posesi just has, you know, take your pick of how to clear this board.
And he can go Amalgam after.
Sure, yeah. Or Brightwing or Onyxia, they're all game-winning cards.
Lamby takes it in good spirits, as you might expect from somebody as seasoned in competition as him. He does have one more Troublemaker in the deck, so he might not concede immediately. And the rabbit will have its time to shine, finally.
Even gets up to 7 attack, I think. So even without the poisonous, it would almost be clearing the board anyway. But yes, it's the only play you can make here.
Wait, not even a reaction from Posesi? Come on.
Oh, he's been here before. Thick rabbit? Yeah. Pff. I call it Tuesday.
How cold-hearted. Sure, Sethic Train, condemn on a singular minion. You probably don't because there's still one more Troublemaker in the deck, so he kind of wants to save condemn for that. He also has the Shadow Word Death for just the Troublemaker, 6/8 body, and there's just no outs for Lamby. Posesi has all the checks of cards he needs.
Yeah, to be fair to Lamby, like, if it wasn't Sethic off the top, like, there are hands where Posesi is out of value, and then if you get exactly Troublemaker off the top, we can talk. There's a chance that it just sticks, because the damage racks up so quickly if it's not dealt with even for one turn. But it's just already there, as we can see. Posesi thinking about going for Nightmare plus Shadow Word Death. It obviously generates him 2 extra cards, but he knows what's left. Exactly. Rank 1 conditioning, that is the bug. It's everything except that is left in the deck.
He can't even clear the Sethic!
Yuck. And for lambyseries, I can very much respect playing to even the slimmest 0.001% out here, because if he takes this loss, it's looking kind of scary still for his run in Grandmasters. It's been 2 weeks in a row of not even getting on stream, and now he got through to the quarterfinals, but he needed a little bit more than this. Just walking away with 2 points is good. It starts to creep him up because he hasn't got many more than that, to be honest, over the rest of the season in GM. But it's not enough to make you feel safe.
Yeah, definitely rough for Lamby. Although I will say it was a pretty good showing for somebody who has almost no experience on LHS competitively.
Oh, yeah.
To make it all the way up to the top 8, and he'll have another week to potentially get his score in a safer position. For Posesi, though, this is very big. Pulling away, getting more points, and making sure he is safe from the relegation zone, and more importantly, setting his sights on playoffs. A thumbs up from Posesi there. He is truly part of the Glory and Alutamu practice group now.
Just the bare minimum requirements. They were probably like, yeah, do a thumbs up at the end. It's part of our thing. We're in a gang, all right? We do thumbs up. And he's like, yeah, fine. Thanks, guys. But yeah, obviously heartbreaking for lambyseries. He goes out, and like you say, he doesn't have much experience with Last Hero Standing, and I do think still that lambyseries is one of the best players that Asia Pacific has to offer. It's an unfortunate aspect of the Grandmaster system that you can just come in, get an unlucky run, and leave straight away. But I really do pray that lambyseries can turn this around. Still has 2 weeks to do so before we head to week 8 and the playoffs. But it's going to have to be, again, a really big turnaround for him in our Last Hero Standing, and then Conquest for the final week of the initial season of Grandmasters here. But for Posesi, big win for him. You know, he wasn't much higher above lambyseries, to be honest, and he can now, along with the rest of his Japanese countrymen, start looking towards top 8 playoffs, where he truly belongs, Gia.
Good stuff all around, and truly the story of today and perhaps tomorrow as well is the power of this lineup.